am so excited because this month I have a special guest who goes by the moniker Drop Dead Gorgeous on YouTube. I randomly came across her channel, and then people actually started sending me her videos, and she makes some amazing mortuary science and funeral service focused content. So, Miss Mortuary, aka Drop Dead Gorgeous, also known as Briana, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. How are you all doing? I just want to thank the Great One for having me on and being such a tremendous support system for me. And I'm grateful to be here with you today.
Thank you so much for being here, Brianna. I'm so excited to talk to you. And you and I kind of connected online a couple weeks ago. But the first time we spoke, you told me that you had four children, and I couldn't believe it. And I know working in death care, thinking about going to mortuary school, and just living life on an everyday basis. I mean, I don't have any kids. I'm a dog mom, but I imagine that you constantly have your hands full.
Yes, all the time.
So let me ask you, what is your first memory of your mother? Because the first video that I saw of yours is where you talked about how you actually did your mom's makeup for her homegoing service. So if
Yeah.
you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about your first memories of your mother and the impact that she's had on your life and your career as an aspiring death care professional.
Would you like more so like a childhood memory or just as an adult in general? Because I have.
Anything you feel comfortable sharing, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Okay. Okay. Um, I remember. I remember the first time that I got lost, and it was actually at Disney World or Disneyland. I can't remember. I was so small, but all I could think about was where was my mother? Where was my mother? And I was surrounded by all these people, and getting lost in a place like that can be traumatizing for a child. And it's a lot of people there, and all I could remember was finding my mother. And that right there, even having that memory as an adult, it still kind of touches me. So it just reminds me of how important she was to me then as she still is to me now. But other memories I have are she's always the neighborhood mom. She would always cook for everyone. She would always sing to us. So she was always just been a positive aspect in my life. So really, if I were to hold on to two memories, it would be those.
Wow, thank you for sharing. I'm pretty sure that we can all relate to getting lost at some point and looking for like a familiar face, especially that of our mothers. And then for the moms out there, I'm pretty sure losing one of your children in a crowded, packed area has to be horrifying. Have you ever lost one of your children in public?
No, I haven't, thankfully. I try to keep a close range on them, but I do have twins, so one goes left and one will go right. So we've had situations where we had to watch them, but we used our intuition, like, okay, something's up. But no, I have not, thankfully.
Wow,
It's
well,
really
that's
just keeping
amazing.
them out of trouble.
That's amazing. You know something that's so funny? I jokingly say I'm a dog mom, but I literally have a dog that's almost 9 years old, and she is like, as far as I'm concerned, she's my daughter. And
Yeah.
last night, I was like, I took her out for a walk, and I took her off of her leash, and came upstairs. I came inside, and then all of a sudden, I'm hearing this barking outside, and it's her outside the door. I locked the dog outside. And the first thought that I had was, oh my God, how am I going to be responsible for a child if I'm locking my dog outside? Like, I forget to feed her sometimes. Like, I forget to, change her water. And I always wonder, especially for women that work in death care, how do you manage to do it all? Like, what does your schedule look like? How do you keep up with four children? And how do you keep your sanity and take care of yourself as a woman
Um,
while raising four human beings?
well, I've had to learn how to take care of myself because everything I do revolves around my children. So, there's some days that I won't eat because I gave them my breakfast that I made for me because, they wanted more and I didn't have time to prepare anything else. Or, I started making myself go get my feet done because I do stand on my feet all day because I still am a hairstylist during the week for living clients. So I I had to learn how to at least treat myself once or twice a month. But really working in the death care industry for me has alleviated a lot of stress in my life because I don't have to work as long at the salon to create, to bring in as much income as I would. So how am I trying to say it? So with me working in death care, going to a facility and providing services for one family alleviates hours of what I would have to do standing on my feet at the salon. And so it also helps me maintain, family structure of having more time to spend with my kids because I go to work for an hour or two versus going to the salon and working for 8 hours. And it's really hard for me because, like I said, I have twins and then I have a son that's special by design. So he's wheelchair bound. He has feeding tube. Then I have my oldest who's a teenager and she's had to step in and really grow up faster than what she's needed to. But she's really, my main support system. And I'm really getting to the point now to where I want her to be able to be a teenager and live her life and not have to necessarily be, that person in my life to help me when I don't have childcare or. So really I'm doing this for not only all the kids, but mainly for her so she can have an experience as a teenager as she's supposed to. So really she's been my biggest support system through all this. So it's been a feat trying to find balance, but you know what? I strive, I persevere, and I don't give up. I find solutions. I don't dwell on the problems.
I love that attitude, and I love what you said about your son being special by design.
Yes.
A lot of times we look at people that have disabilities or that face challenges that we don't face ourselves. There's something wrong with them, but it's so loving and just so compassionate for you to use those gentle and affirming words about your son. It really touched my heart. I
Thank
know that, oh, no problem. I know that a lot of times, especially as women in death care, we are forced into operating in a lot of masculine energy because we have to protect our families from information that may be traumatizing to them. We
you.
have to deliver information in a way that it can be received. We have to have a very arrow minded mindset about meeting deadlines and meeting just expectations of those that we work with. We have a lot of people depending on us on a daily basis. How do you honor your femininity? Because I can tell just by your videos and the tone of your voice, you're such a girly girl. So how do
I
you
am.
maintain your femininity?
Really, because all of the women in my family were very feminine, and I say were because the majority of the women in my family have passed away. I still have my grandmother. I was actually raised or grew up in beauty supplies. So my grandmother had beauty supplies in the 80s. So I was basically born into it. And my mother, she would always tell me, it doesn't matter where you're going, you always present yourself as if you're going to meet someone or run into someone. So I've taken those tokens and I use that every day. And then plus the fact that I'm offering beauty services, I want the families to know that I'm capable of doing it by presenting myself in a way that I would like their loved one to look. So I really just do it, and it helps keep me. I don't necessarily need the makeup and all that to have confidence, but it does give you a little extra pep in your step. It gives you a little extra sparkle. So it really just it's just for me at the end of the day to help me remind myself, like, you're a trendsetter, you're a role model, you're presenting yourself to the world to let young ladies know that it's a way to present yourself in a classy manner and still be seen and heard. So that's really what I strive on, is just showing other people that it's a possibility, because you're right, it is a male dominated industry. And I'm thankful enough that the males that I'm around, they're very strong-minded men and they don't really understand a lot that we go through, but I've established friendships with them, and so they understand this is how it is. This is how she presents herself, and they see that I shine those services through the families that I serve.
I absolutely love it. And I agree 100%. We could present ourselves in a way that says that, not only are we capable, but I put effort into myself and I'm going to put the same effort into, you know, taking care of you and your loved one. I recently did a video and you left a comment on there about finding clothes as larger women. I know I'm a plus size woman and I've never seen like your full body picture, but just from what I've seen on Facebook, I imagine that you might be plus size as well. And
Yes.
finding clothes that fit professionally, that make us feel beautiful, make us feel empowered, and make us also look professional are is kind of a task for larger women in this industry. So do you have any shopping tips or places that you shop that plus size ladies listening to this podcast may be able to take advantage of?
I will honestly say that that's where a lot of my insecurity was as a younger plus size woman. And my mother really implemented a lot of her fashion sense, but she would buy my clothes and they were a little bit more mature than I would have liked. But she used to take me to Lane Bryant, Ashley Stewart, Rainbow, Torrid, things like that. But at first, all the clothes were big and bulky, they weren't fitted. So it made me feel larger than what I was. And that was an insecurity for me. I'm also I have a larger foot size. And so that was really difficult for me too, because you couldn't find nice, pretty shoes or heels, so you could feel confident. They would always be big and bulky or a man's shoe. So once society started changing and they started noticing that, you know, larger size women, plus size women deserve to feel sexy and confident as well. Once I started dedicating to actually purchasing clothes for myself and not feeling guilty for, buying something for myself, I would go to Torrid or Lane Bryant, when I had a little extra money, because they tend to be a little bit higher priced. But really, my staples starting off were Rainbow, Ashley Stewart, really just the lower end stores, because, being a single parent and being a mother of four, my income was restricted. So I had to find certain ways to purchase items, and I would put them together, learn how to mix and match, and really just let my confidence work through. It was even times where I would have to go to the thrift store. And, a lot of people, they talk down on people who are thrift shoppers and things like that. But I encourage it, because you can still find name brand clothes. if you may not be in the position to do so, just, you have to find ways to create a style for yourself, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. Now I'll still go to JC Penney's. You can go to JC Penney's. They have a plus size collection now. And I really like to find things on a budget because, like I said, I have 4 kids and I still need to, I can't splurge, but I really just look for coupons and specials and when they have sales. And then that's when I go buy items for myself. But it can be hard trying to find professional items at a reasonable cost and, still look, beautiful and feel confident. So that's what
Yes,
I would suggest. Yeah.
I am the queen of Goodwill. I'm the
Yes.
queen of buying a blazer and some professional slacks at either Lane Bryant or Avenue, maybe even
Mm-hmm.
Torrid,
Mm-hmm.
and then going to City Trends or Rainbow or what is it called? Fashion Fashion Now, I think that's the name of the store. I may be saying it wrong, but yeah, I will mix more expensive items with items that I've gotten off of the clearance rack. I will go to Walmart and get some of those camis for $2 or $3 when they have them marked down, and get
Mm-hmm.
every color that I can in my size and accessorize, a pretty necklace or a bracelet or some earrings, some bright lipstick. I am the queen of doing that. So yeah, I
Yeah.
don't want anyone to feel like in order to be professional, it means that you have to go
Yeah.
spend a whole bunch of money. What you really need is like really a blazer, a pair of slacks, and maybe a skirt if you wear skirts or a dress, and then mix it up. I love
Yeah.
to go to what is it? Catherine's in December when they put all of their tights and their stockings on sale, buy two, get two free, or buy one, get two free. I load up once a year and with 5 or 6 pair of tights, I mean, I've gotten through 6, 7 months at a time, especially during the winter, because when you're cold outside and you're in the cemetery, you have to keep your legs and your feet warm. But yeah,
Mm-hmm. And really, I want people to know they're only going to know if you tell them.
that's it.
So,
Nobody cares.
yeah, nobody cares. It's just like me wearing a wig. They're like, "Oh, that's so cute." I'm like, "It's a wig." They're like, "Why are you
Right.
telling people this?"
Why are
I'm
you
like,
telling people that? I don't know. Or my
"Because I
favorite
want
thing
you
is,
to know that
oh,
it's possible."
right. My thing that I say is, oh, I got it on sale, or oh, I got it on clearance. And everybody was
Yeah,
telling me, nobody cares how much you paid for it. Just say thank you. And
right.
I'm like, okay. And I think
They
that's another
shouldn't.
thing as women we need to work on is receiving compliments and uplifting one another because
Mm-hmm.
especially in death care, things can be so competitive. There are funeral homes literally across the street from each other, and there tends to
Yeah.
be an unspoken rule that you don't talk to this family because they went to this home, or there's just this natural competition between funeral homes, especially in the Black community. But I think
Mm-hmm.
it's really important for us as Black women, especially in this industry, or women period, to support one another and just to be open to conversations and sharing.
Right.
So I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk about the hardest cases for you in the funeral home. What cases bother you? Has seen people lose their mom after going through the experience of having to bury your mom? Has that bothered you when you see families come in that are doing that, or are there certain cases that just really get to you?
Um, really, I let the love in my heart from losing my mother transfer to them. And so the only difficult part I have is when they come to the viewing and they're mourning, crying, that gets to me. I still have times where I have to work through that, but really I just focus more on delivering the most familiar, comforting experience that they could have in their time of need. I haven't necessarily the cases that I worked on a more so sympathetic, or not sympathetic, but I felt empathy, like I had to serve, provide services for a woman that was still pregnant. And that was hard for me because the husband just lost his wife and his unborn child. And then also his mother was in the hospital and he wasn't for sure if he was going to lose her. So I have to say that was the hardest case for me. And I could feel what she was going through. I was at work and I was just crying. And I'm like, before you came here, you were fine. And while I'm preparing her makeup and, all this, I'm just crying. And so I don't necessarily talk to them, but I like, while I'm applying makeup in the hair, I'm just like, it's okay. It's all right. Like, you're gorgeous. I hate what you're going through, but I'm going to put as much love as I can to, I don't feel like I don't feel like I'm helping them cross over, but it's like, I feel like I'm a guide. So whenever I do feel like the person doesn't want to let go or they're having a hard time, I feel like I was placed there to let them know that it's okay. And so a lot of the times it's really, what's hard for me is the families, hearing what the families have to go through. But as far as the cases, I've learned how to differentiate, like, this is my job, this is what you signed up for, this is what you're going to see. So, you need to be prepared for this, but that doesn't mean that you can't show empathy, you can't show love, you can't show sympathy. So that's really what's the hardest for me, is the families once they come to view them. It's not even necessarily, working on the person for me.
I definitely can agree with that. The hardest cases for me are when people are in denial about the fact that their loved one has died. And when I take them into that viewing room for the first time, for that first viewing, when the family's there privately, and the reality sets in that their loved one is really gone, I almost feel as if by being there and by being the professional in that setting, I've robbed them of that last little bit of hope that they were hanging on to. Because there's been cases that I worked, one that pops in my mind is of a Hispanic gentleman that drowned here at a lake called Lake Lanier in Georgia. And they found him in the lake, but the family didn't identify it after he was found. He was
Okay.
taken to the medical examiner's office, and I think he was identified through dental records, so there was no need for the family to do any type of visual confirmation. So in their mind, they'd gone to the lake, they'd enjoyed the day, he'd gone and just gotten lost. And it's so interesting because we were talking about getting lost earlier.
Yeah.
But when they came into the funeral home, they were a Hispanic family and they didn't speak English. The wife and the mom and the dad, but one of his sons spoke English. And so he was telling me that the family was saying they appreciated everything that we had done. Um, they were there, but they knew it wasn't their loved one. And so when we went into that chapel and they saw his the like his silhouette, his profile, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it was heart wrenching. And I mean, every case is heartbreaking, but you could literally tell they honestly believed that this man had not died. They
Yeah.
thought it was a mistake. They knew he just got lost, and the heartbreak and the grief was palatable. And that will always just be with me. And I'm not going to say I hate that part of the job, but I hate that I had to be the one to break that to them in that moment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, like you, the cases themselves don't bother me as much anymore, just the families. I know a lot of people have a hard time working on children As a mom, is it difficult for you to see children or provide services for children?
Yes, so the first time that I actually had to go to work alone in the funeral home, when I went into the preparation room, it was three children. It was other adults, but it was three children, and they ranged from adolescent, toddler, and an infant. And not only I was already startled that I had to be there alone, but the fact that I walked into a room with children, it devastated me that day because I could only imagine what the parents are going through. I wouldn't want to see my child in a situation, nor would I want to feel what it feels like to lose a child. So I haven't necessarily provided services, but I do go in and like do little touch ups. And I'm such a comforting person with everyone. So I just walk by the babies and I'm like, you sweet baby, just the life you haven't lived, and just little things like that. The mother in me comes out. But now that I've been in the industry, I believe that I could do it. Not to say that I would want to, but I feel like that would be the hardest part for me. And the person I worked with got fussed at that day for not letting me know. But then, him not having children, he didn't think about it. But I was like, next time we have children, can you please let me know? Because I would like to prepare myself. Because at the end of the day, I have to go home to my children. But being that I'm in this industry, I had to realize that, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. So if I'm going to be here, I just need to be prepared for that. But that was a little traumatizing my first time seeing that.
I'm sure. What is your decompression method? So, what is the process that you go through to kind of not take your mind off of it, but to go home and be able to be mommy to your babies who don't really have a, a concept of life and death, and they're still innocent, I'm sure. So, what does that process look like for you?
So for me, I learned how to cut it off. And I've grown over the years, especially with my mother's passing. That's really helped me with my mental strength and my emotional strength. So once I provide services at the funeral home, the minute I get into the car, that's it. Like I don't carry it with me. And plus my life is so busy and hectic, they don't really give me the chance. They don't really give me the chance to think about it. So
Right.
that's one thing I'm grateful for too, because they keep me busy enough to where, like, hey, I'm here, notice me, don't think about what went on at work. But I really just I have breathing techniques that I do if I get overwhelmed. We have a garden at one of the locations that I work at. So if I need to go outside and get a little breather and walk around, I have that. I'm also the person that I work with, the embalmer that I work with side by side. He's helped me learn how to cope with certain emotions. I've asked him, how do you cope? What do you do? So there's certain things that he's implemented into my, mental and emotional growth to where I'm able to go home and just, that was work. Now you're home. And once I got into the program of that, that's all it is. Like, unless, we have to correspond with each other through text messages about someone, it doesn't come home. Now they know what I do. They don't really know too much of what I do, but they have an idea and they'll ask. But other than that, it stays at the funeral homes.
Have you had conversations with your children about that?
Yes, I do. And it's all started, especially with my mother. And we on the day of my mother's service, actually, one of my twins asked me, "Where is my Nene?" And I told her she's in heaven with the angels. I didn't know how to explain to her what was going on. And I like to joke that one of my twins is an old soul and one is a new one. Well,
Hmm.
the old soul was like, "Oh, she rolled over, croaked, and died." And I looked at her and I was like, that sounds like something my mom would have said. But where did you get that from? And she's like, well, I just know that she died. And I'm like, okay. But with her twin, she's still unaware of it. She knows that she's not around. She knows that she's not here. But I've brought them to work with me to one of the funeral homes that I work at, and they weren't able to see anyone, but they looked through the casket, through the window and saw a casket, and they're like, "Is that a dead person in there?" And I'm like, "Yes." I'm like, "Are you okay? Are you all right with being here?" And they're like, "Yeah, I'm fine." So my children have gotten used to the idea of my profession. They don't necessarily come to work with me all the time, but I do work for a facility where they have an office, a TV, where if I needed to bring them to work with me,
Hmm.
there are accommodations set up for them. And they just sit in here and let me do my job, and they don't bother me. But they've asked me, like, "Is that a dead person?" "Oh, okay." And I'm like, it surprised me how well they adjusted to it, even though my mother is the only one that they've actually seen, in that type of environment. So, but and I will say my oldest, I've asked her too. I was like, so if I ever decide to further my career to become a funeral director or an embalmer and have my own establishment, would you be interested in working, with me and growing with me? And she was like, I can try. I don't mind. And I was like, it doesn't scare you? She's like, not yet. So, she's willing
Oh,
to, yeah, she's willing to be a part of that. But yeah, the kids are okay with it for now. They don't really know too much. And I don't try to say certain things around them because I don't want them to go and scare other children or go and fill other children's heads with certain things too. So I try to be mindful about what I say about work and certain things, but I let them know that when someone does pass, they go to another place other than here.
okay.
And they've done okay with understanding that, I believe.
So the name of this podcast is Death at the Movie. Um, what is your favorite movie that in some way talks about death, dying, and grief, and why?
The two that I'm stuck between would be My Girl and Death Becomes Her. And that's the name of
Mm,
it. Yeah. The reason why I would choose My Girl is because really just losing someone at such a young age and not knowing how to accept it and trying to find ways to cope with it. And I know the young lady in the video, her father was a mortician. So, she grew up around that. But I don't
right,
think it really hit her until she lost her friend.
right,
And so that right there for me that was heart wrenching. Even now, as an adult watching it, it
right.
still
Does it
kind of
speak
gets to
to any
me.
personal experiences of yours?
No, because everyone that I've lost was either older or sick. Now I did lose a boyfriend. That was hard for me. And I had to learn how to deal with that. But even on that aspect, we talk about spirituality and things like that. I saw it happen before it happened. So
Mm.
that's what traumatized me the most about that loss that I had.
Do you care to share any more about that?
Oh no, I don't mind because it's helped me also realize the gifts that I have and what
Yes.
makes it easier for me to work in this industry. So I met someone over summertime. This was years ago. I met someone over the summertime, and at first I couldn't stand him. He got on my nerves. I was like, will you be quiet? But once we started to get to know each other, that became the most charming part of him to me. So, we had a little summer love, and it was one night in particular, like we hadn't spoken, we had broke up, and then we got back together. Well, the day that he came to see me, it was really weird because he was coming to get his stuff, but then he was coming to try to rekindle something at the same time. So,
Right.
the exchanges were different. It just felt really different. And so that night he was supposed to come back to see me. And I'm like, well, enjoy yourself. You're out partying. Just, be careful. Well, it had got later on that night. And I had sent him a message like, you know what? Just stay where you're at. And when I sent that message, I literally visualized like, so he got in a car accident and his car flipped 6 times. I think it was about 6 times, and he was ejected from the vehicle. I
Mm.
had a vision of his car flipping,
Mm.
and I didn't see him being ejected, but I immediately knew something wasn't right. So something kept telling me, call the EMTs, call to see, because I didn't know anyone to get in contact to find out if something was wrong. Like I knew a family member, but I wasn't going to bother them. And then lo and behold, his brother called me that morning and was like, he passed away. And I'm like, how? And he was like, in a car accident, his car flipped
Mm.
6 times. And that helped me realize not only did I have a connection with him, but I also had a gift. And a lot of the times when I do have these visions or things come to me, it's either about life or death, someone being born or someone dying. So, yeah, that, and I forgot about it. This is making me like, not in an emotional way, just realizing why I'm in this industry.
That's
And it
so
was,
interesting because literally
mhm,
this morning I made a video about premonitions
mhm,
about death and dying. I call it my grave woman tingle. And the
mhm,
video is going to be up on my YouTube later this week. But in the video, I talk about, the fact that I can tell when someone's going to die. It's just a gut feeling. Even
mhm.
sometimes looking at pictures and seeing something that's not there or the image being distorted or off colored. And it's
Yeah.
so comforting to know that other people, especially in this industry, have these gifts. And the next time that we talk and do an episode, because I definitely want to invite you back, we'll have to talk about honing in on those gifts and how to use them to our benefit and not have them scare us or, you know, drive us
Mhm,
away from our spiritual journey. Because I definitely believe that God gives those gifts in order for us to be of help to others and to also pray and help others that are in the transitioning process
mhm,
cross
mhm.
over, so to speak. But before I let you go, I want you to share with the listeners how they can find you on social media and talk a little bit about what inspired your YouTube channel.
Okay. Well, first of all, you can find me on IG. I'm Miss_Mortuary. Um, on Facebook, I'm still trying to get my Facebook handles together, but you can find me at Drop Dead Gorgeous. and it's DRPDADG. I'll make sure I spell it right. You might have to cut that out.
Okay.
Okay. But yeah, it's Drop Dead Gorgeous. Just remove the O. And then I'm on TikTok as MsMortuary. And my email is dropdeadgorgeous13@gmail.com. Well, actually, as far as me starting my YouTube channel, I've always wanted to start one because I like to coin myself the beauty supply guru because I've worked in beauty supplies for over 15 years, really even half my life. Um, and I always wanted to do something to help others, but it just never got off the ground. Hold on, they're doing something. Okay. Those never got off the ground. What really initiated my channel was the fact that I was doing mortuary makeup and no one else had a channel dedicated to strictly mortuary hair and makeup. I
Mhm,
saw certain morticians and embalmers that did makeup reviews,
mhm.
and they shared certain tips, but there was lack of information as far as going into detail. So one day I said, you know what, I'm going to step out on faith. These people are going to see my face and I'm just going to do it. And I really hesitated about putting my mom's video out there, but I feel like she's the reason why I do this. She's the one that put me in this position. And I wanted to share with the world, you can do your mother's makeup. Don't be afraid to, you know, if you want to go in and do her hair and makeup, do it. I wanted to show the support behind it. I wanted them to know that funeral homes don't necessarily always have to do it. I just wanted to show a different side of it. And, I catch a lot of slack from a lot of grief from putting my mother's deceased photos on film. But the fact that I got permission and support from my family, my mother basically came to me and told me it's okay for you to do it. And
Mm,
so I did it. And I've helped so many families, so many people get through. I've had people contact me from the UK, all over the world, really. And they're like, thank you. I wasn't able to do her makeup, but you sharing your story helped me get through the hard times I'm going through. So regardless of what happens to the channel, as long as I help people and help them, find comfort and peace, that's really all I want to do. So that's why I
beautiful.
created it.
Beautiful. Well, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for joining me. You guys make sure that you head over to YouTube and find Drop Dead Gorgeous without the O and the drop, right?
No, well, on YouTube, it's Drop Dead Gorgeous Mortuary Hair and Makeup. They have to type in
Okay.
the full thing.
Okay. Drop Dead Gorgeous Mortuary Hair and Makeup. And I will
Mm-hmm.
make sure to link all of your social media, YouTube, and everything, your email address in the description for this episode of the podcast. Thank you
Okay.
so much for joining me and for sharing your story and just talking with me. And I'd love to have you back again.
And I like to thank you. It's been an honor, and I'm so grateful for you reaching out to me. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
All right. We'll talk to you guys next time.
All right. Thank you.